We will not walk away and leave a vacuum to be filled by China, Russia or Iran. So said U.S. President Joe Biden while wrapping up his first Middle East trip as U.S. president. However, the trip has been described as a bumpy ride with many landmines. What made he take this trip? Did he get what he wanted? What's the impact of this trip for the region and beyond? Joining me today from Shanghai is Professor Huang Jing, Distinguished Professor and Director of American and Pacific Studies Institute at Shanghai International Studies University. And on the line from Abu Dhabi, Ibrahim Hashem, strategist and Asia Global Fellow at Asia Global Institute. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. Professor Huang, in 2019, U.S. President said, then Biden said the U.S. will make Saudi Arabia pay the price and make them the pariah that they are after the Khashoggi murder case. He also tweeted that human rights should be at the core of America's engagement with the world. Yet in his latest Washington Post op-ed article, which was published on July the 9th, right before his trip, he said this trip comes at a vital time for the region and it will advance important American interests. Professor Huang, it seems that the Biden administration or President Biden is taking a very pragmatic approach here. Is he doing the right thing or wrong thing?
You know, from the point of human rights, of course, he's doing the wrong thing. We know that the murder of journalist Khashoggi is a gross violation of human rights because this is a very bad act, and Saudi Arabia was condemned by the whole world, and of course, including the United States. Now, President Biden went back on his own words and went to the Middle East, and it seems that not only did he forget all of this, this bad thing, this murder of this journalist, but also he actually, to some extent, begged the Saudis to do things that he wanted to do. This is really, from my point of view, ridiculous. And also, it demonstrated the double standards of Biden administration on the issue of human rights.
Is he doing the right thing for American national interests?
I don't think so, because United States of America, or Americanism, stands on the protection of human rights. And this is also what American administrations or government has been doing for a long time. But this one, of course, I think it may serve Biden's interests or the interests of Biden administration, but not the interest of the United States of America as a nation and also as a so-called leader on human rights issue.
Mr. Hashem on the line, what do you think of the apparent contradiction of Washington's position or the Biden administration or Biden himself on this issue?
It's not only human rights that really the administration officials talked about in the run-up to the summit. Some officials talked about political reforms, values, in their discussions. So a lot of people in the Arab world were a bit confused what they exactly meant by these words. And of course, the murder of the journalist Khashoggi, a Saudi citizen, it was something tragic. Everybody considered it tragic, and already actions taken to prevent such a act to happen again. So the Saudis, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, in his remarks, he basically said, we need to intensify our cooperation based on UN Charter that stipulates countries' sovereignty, values, and territorial integrity should be respected, and interference. So he literally said interference in the internal affairs of other countries should not be allowed. And the Khashoggi murder was a domestic matter, and it was already taken care of by the legal system in Saudi Arabia. So repeatedly bringing the same subject again was detrimental to creating a positive atmosphere for the summit that took place yesterday or the day before yesterday.
I want to go back to, so Mr. Hashem, what do you think is the significance of Mr. Biden's visit 18 months after he took office?
The Arab world, the people and the leaders for a period of time have been thinking about their relations with the United States, especially over the last 20 years. Their relations have gone through a lot of ups and downs. And before coming to the summit, a lot of people were talking about how to strengthen or how to reboot this relation. And according to some sources, the Arab world, the Arab countries, were not really initially included in the itinerary. It's only after the Ukraine crisis, after the energy markets started being disrupted as a result of the sanctions taken against Russia, that the Arab world, one of the major oil producing regions, and also one of the major gas producing regions, it started becoming really relevant to the American administration.
All right. Yeah. Professor Huang, let me get your take. Mr. Biden says we're not walking away. We don't want there to be a power vacuum to be filled by Russia or China or Iran. But he didn't visit this region in the first 18 months of his presidency. And if it is true what our guest said just now, it's because of the Ukrainian crisis bringing up the prices of oil, then he's thinking of visiting Arab countries. Then obviously the Biden administration does not seem to place Middle East on real top of their agenda.
Yes, and when President Biden said that United States did not walk away from Middle East, I think that's just a justification for his trip. Just like the previous guest said, only after Russia-Ukraine war that United States with its allies has this kind of all-in sanction against Russia, but the sanction is not as effective as it desired because Russia, as a major oil and gas producers, a sanction has to be effective in this regard. And Middle East, especially Saudi and other Arabic countries, they are the major producers. But we know that all the countries in the Middle East, including America's allies, Israel, refuse to join the sanction, to follow up of the sanctions, which of course has been very effective on U.S. sanctions, on the failure of the sanctions. That's why this trip is to, I think the major purpose for Joe Biden's trip is to ask the Middle East countries, especially those oil producers, to join the United States to sanction against Russia, or at least to increase the products of energy of oil, so that to make the Russia's oil less demanded than by the other countries. But I don't think he has achieved what he wants to do.
Let's talk a little bit more on this point. The White House in this statement said the U.S. welcomes Saudi Arabia's commitment to support global oil market and that both sides decide to consult regularly, but no concrete results were announced. And then on the Saudi side, the Saudi Crown Prince said that his country would increase its oil production to 13 million barrels maximum a day, but he also stressed that his country would be unable to increase output any further to meet the increased demand for oil amid the global energy crisis. For people's knowledge, currently Saudi Arabia produces 11 million barrels a day. So, Professor Huang, once again, how do you interpret Saudi Arabia's response to American demand?
As the oil producers, it is vital, it's in Saudi's interest and the vital interest to maintain the stability of oil price. The kind of up and downs will not serve Saudi's interests, will undermine or damage its interests. So for Saudis, the number one important thing is to maintain the oil price in a kind of stable level. But of course, right now the oil price increased sharply because of sanctions, levied by United States on Russia, which of course is not a bad thing for Saudis. So Saudis worry that if Saudis increase the production dramatically as the United States wants, they will send a signal, a wrong signal from Saudi's perspective, a wrong signal to the market that the oil will be amply supplied, the supply will be increased. So therefore, will drive the price down. Worse than that, it will make the price unstable, up and down, which of course is not in Saudi's interest at all.
Okay. Mr. Hashem, how do you read into the subtle rejection, basically, from Saudi Arabia to America's demand? And did President Biden not foresee the kind of response he's going to get?
According to the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia, the oil demand increase was not really included as an item on the agenda. And do
you really believe in that?
This is literally what the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia said yesterday after the summit was over, and he said it like it was not included in the discussions. And he said he talked about the decision to increase the production to 13 million barrels per day by the end of this decade. This is a decision that has been already taken a long time ago, and it's not really part of the discussions of the summit. And it's got nothing to do with the discussion. And also, he highlighted that the oil supply increase or decrease is going to be regulated through OPEC Plus, and in that grouping, Russia is a major player. So Saudi Arabia and Russia, both of them, are the largest oil exporters and also the largest oil suppliers within the group. So without really a discussion with the rest of the members of OPEC Plus, that would be impossible, or it wouldn't be realistic of the Saudis to go and do it unilaterally based on the demand or request coming from the United States.
All right. Time very limited. Professor Huang, any comment in response to that, and also to this new thing called relatively new thing called I2U2, which is dubbed Quad in West Asia. What is your reaction? 2 points, really quickly, please.
I think the hegemony of the United States is declining. That's for true. And Saudi Arabia used to be a very firm ally of the United States, but now in Saudis stand up against U.S. interests, act its own interests and interests of that region. I think that's a very good demonstration of that.
Okay. Concerning the I2U2, do you have something to say? It's a grouping of the United States, UAE, India, and Israel. They had their very first meeting.
No, I think that's all kind of talk, empty talk, with not much, not much really substance in it. Yes.
All right. We have to wait and see. Many thanks to Professor Huang Jing, Distinguished Professor and Director of American and Pacific Studies Institute at Shanghai International Studies University, and Ibrahim Hashem joining us on the line, Strategist and Asia Global Fellow at Asia Global Institute.